Exports of Korean instant noodles or ramen neared $1 billion in 2023 to hit a new record high, rising 24% from a year earlier.
지난해 우리나라 라면 수출액이 2022년 대비 24% 증가한 10억 달러에 육박하면서 사상 최대치를 기록했습니다. Let's talk ramen then.
Yeah, so it's definitely very popular in our household, but it looks like it's very popular around the world as well. So outbound shipments of Korean ramen posted $952 million last year in 2023, and that was up 24% year on year. And they say that it already broke the record in the first 10 months of last year, reaching $785 million, which surpassed the previous record set back in 2022.
Wow.
And annual ramen exports posted growth for the 9th consecutive year since 2015. And of course, the rise is attributed to the popularity of Korean movies, dramas, music. That's been just, it's been exploding abroad. And there's also been a high demand for these ready-to-eat, very simply cooked products over the COVID-19 pandemic.
Exactly. Korean ramen is really, really popular around the world. And as you said, exports are still going strong.
Yeah.
exports의 또 다른 말로 outbound shipments라는 표현을 아까 써주셨고요. 지금 9년 연속 증가세다. K-culture 덕분인 것 같습니다.
Yep.
Let's have a look at the main expressions here. The first one is this verb, to near.
Right. So near, it's used definitely as a verb. Like you mentioned, it means to come near to someone or something. You can also use the word approach.
자, 여기서 near, near가요. 동사로 쓰여서 가까워지다라는 뜻입니다. Nearing $1 billion. 10억 달러에 가까운, 육박한 이런 의미가 되겠죠. And rising 24% from a year earlier.
Right, so rising means to move from a lower position, or in this case, a lower figure, lower number, to a higher one. So come or go up.
네, rise는 오른다라는 뜻이 있죠. rise와 raise의 차이는 raise는 내가 뭔가 끌어올리는
Right.
것이고 rise는 스스로 알아서 올라가는 것입니다. So rising 24%. We're talking about exports here. Okay, here it is again. Exports of Korean instant noodles or ramen neared $1 billion in 2023 to hit a new record high, rising 24% from a year earlier. Here's our second headline.
Extreme weather events have plagued Europe, leaving thousands without power in the Nordic region, while floods hit France, Germany, and the Netherlands.
유럽 곳곳이 이상기후 현상으로 몸살을 앓는 가운데 북유럽 지역은 수천 명이 전기가 끊긴 생활을 하고 있으며 프랑스, 독일, 네덜란드는 홍수 피해를 입은 것으로 전해졌습니다. What's going on in Europe?
Right. I think I covered this issue last week when we talked about the extreme cold temperatures in the Nordic region.
Right.
So it's hit negative 40 degrees in some areas in Finland and Sweden. Schools have closed down, and the extreme cold is causing havoc on the roads. So thousands of people in the Nordic countries are still without power, and that's due to gusty winds and snow causing havoc. They say that a lot of drivers are still stuck in their cars because of the hazardous and clogged highways. Temperatures dropped to as low as negative 43.6 degrees Celsius, which was the lowest January temperature that was recorded in Sweden in some 25 years. Meanwhile, so the countries like France, Germany, and Netherlands, they've reported floods. So there was one death that was linked to the weather that was reported in France, and several towns in the north of the country, they were underwater after several days of rain, and there were mild but wet and windy conditions that prevailed further south, where a storm wreaked havoc in parts of Western Europe as well.
We're really seeing no end to these weather-related
Yeah.
stories. The new year is no different to last year. And you mentioned the expression there, to wreak havoc,
Yes.
or to cause havoc.
Yes.
And those both mean the same thing. It means to cause a lot of chaos and confusion. And
We use the term a lot when we're talking about natural disasters.
Right. Okay, so let's have a look at the first expression here, which is to plague some area.
Right, to plague. So it's used as a verb and it means to cause continual trouble or distress.
plague 스펠링이 plague이고요. 뭔가를 괴롭힌다 아니면 고통을 준다라는 뜻이 있는데요. 보통은 굉장히 많은 숫자로 많은 사람들이나 많은 피해를 입었을 때 그런 이제 다량의 느낌이 같이 들어 있어요.
Yes.
플레이그를 이제 한 사람한테 쓸 수는 없습니다. 예, 많은 지역, 많은 사람에게 피해를 입을 때 쓰는 것이다라고 볼 수 있겠고, 아니다 생각해보니까 사람한테도 쓸 수 있긴 하겠네요.
Yeah.
You can be plagued by something individually.
Right. But I mean, you're right because when we use this, well, in this case, definitely, because, when we talk about plagues, it influences a lot of people.
네, plague라는 명사 자체는 이제 plague in the Bible, you know,
Yes.
you have the plague
The
of all
Black
these
Plague.
different. Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Black plague.
흑사병,
흑사병이죠.
yes.
네, 우리말로는. 예, 그런 경우를 보듯이 많은 사람들에게 영향을 미칠 때 이 플레이그를 쓰는 것이 일반적이지만 뭐 때에 따라서는 나한테
you could be
큰
plagued by something.
질병이
Yes.
걸렸을
Yeah.
때 쓸 수도 있겠네요. 자, 그다음에는 leaving thousands without power.
Right. So if you're without power, it means you don't have any electricity. So we're talking about blackouts. So in this case, usually when I guess one house could be without power, but if there's a storm, it usually
Right.
affects a lot of different houses.
Leave someone without power is the same as saying something has caused a blackout to someone. 정전이 발생했다는 뜻이 되죠. 전기가 끊겼다. Leave someone without power. 자, 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. Extreme weather events have plagued Europe, leaving thousands without power in the Nordic region, while floods hit France, Germany, and the Netherlands.
The Consumer Electronics Show, the largest tech event in the world, is set to open in Las Vegas on Tuesday under the theme All Together, All On.
세계 최대 규모의 가전 및 IT 전시회 CES의 올해 행사가 All Together, All On이라는 슬로건과 함께 내일부터 미국 라스베이거스에서 개최됩니다. Okay, so let's have a look at this story.
Right, so it's CS 2024, and it looks like this year's theme, or they're going to be focusing a lot on AI-powered technology that's going to change our daily lives in the coming years. So as we mentioned, the theme of this year is All Together, All On. It's going to kick off its 4-day run in Las Vegas on January 9th. The show is expected to attract 4,300 exhibitors from 150 countries, and 800 of them are from Korea. So they say 30 of the show sessions will center around AI, and household names like Samsung Electronics, LG Electronics, Sony, as well as big tech companies like Google and Amazon are all participating in this year's event.
이 슬로건을 우리말로는 이렇게 번역했더라고요. 모두 다 함께, 모두 켜져라. All together, all on.
On. You click it on.
Yeah. And it could even be, talking about mobility and how you have things on you.
Yeah.
So it could have several meanings.
Yeah, different
but,
meanings. Yeah.
Definitely switching something on there. Okay, so let's talk about this. The first expression describes what CES is, and it is a tech event.
Right, it's the largest tech event in the world, as we mentioned. So a tech event, it's a gathering or a conference that focuses on technology, innovation, and the latest developments that's going on in the tech industry.
What about if you say something is opening under the theme of something?
Right, so when we're talking about theme, it's the subject matter of a conversation or discussion. And when we say under the theme, we can use this expression when we're referring to something that falls under a certain category or an idea.
자, 그래요. 그래서 under the theme 뭐뭐뭐라고 하면은 이러한 주제로라는 뜻이고요. 앞서 tech 이벤트는 IT 계열의 행사를 말합니다. 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. The Consumer Electronics Show, or CES, the largest tech event in the world, is set to open in Las Vegas on Tuesday under the theme All Together, All On. Okay, and let's move on to the next headline.
An analysis of new images from the James Webb Space Telescope has suggested that galaxies were born in the shape of bananas or pickles as opposed to the widely assumed shape of orbs or spidery disks.
제임스 웹 우주 망원경이 촬영한 새로운 이미지를 분석한 결과 신생은하는 구형이거나 기다란 원반형이었다는 기존 학설과는 달리 바나나 혹은 피클 같은 형태였을 것으로 추측됐습니다. 자, 여기서 말하는 피클은 우리가 피자 시킬 때 먹는 그 동그란 피클을 말하는 게 아니고요. 서양 사람들이 생각하는 피클은 미니 오이 형태로 된 약간
Yeah.
길쭉한 피클을 말해요.
Well, I mean, they are the pickles that we eat, but the ones that we eat are sliced.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so the whole ones.
네, 네.
Yeah.
그래서 좀 헷갈릴 수 있어서 설명을 드렸습니다. 왜냐하면 이제 구형이 아니고 길쭉한 형태인 것으로 이렇게 드러났다라는 건데요. 설명을 좀 주시죠.
Right. So they're saying that these newborn galaxies are shaped like bananas or pickles or, cigars. So and
Yeah,
it's something that's
something
long,
long, yeah.
right? So this is the tentative conclusion that they've reached by a team of astronomers who re-examined images of some 4,000 newborn galaxies that were taken by the Webb. And if the result holds, they're saying that it could profoundly alter their understanding of how galaxies emerge and grow. And it also offers insight into the mysterious nature of dark matter as well, which is an unknown and invisible form of matter that astronomers say make up a major part of the universe and outweighs atomic matter 5-1.
이렇게 길쭉한 모양이라는 것이 새롭게 발견이 되면서 더욱더 많은 연구는 필요하겠지만 기존의 학설이 완전히 지금 뒤집힌
Yeah.
거예요. Let's have a look at the first expression. This is as opposed to what we thought before.
Right. As opposed to. So at first they thought it was shaped as an orb
Yeah,
or a
something
spidery
round.
disc, but now they're thinking that it's shaped like a banana. So as opposed to means rather than. So it's an expression that you use when you want to make it clear that you're talking about one particular thing and not something else.
네. A as opposed to B. 그러면은 B가 아니라 A라는 뜻입니다. 자, 그다음에 widely assumed.
Right. Widely assumed is an expression that you use when you want to say something that is commonly believed. So it's an expression you use when you want to express a general consensus among a large group of people.
네. 널리 알려진 바와는 달리 그동안의 학설과는 달리 이번에 새로운 연구 결과가 아니면 그 측정이 된 것이 나온 것이죠. All right, so here's the headline again. An analysis of new images from the James Webb Space Telescope has suggested that galaxies were born in the shape of bananas or pickles, as opposed to the widely assumed shape of orbs or spidery discs. Now let's move on to the final headline.
A letter penned in 1943 was finally delivered recently after it was lost in the mail for decades on end because it was sent with an incomplete address.
1943년에 쓰여졌지만 수신인 주소가 불완전해 수십 년 동안 계속 우편물 속에 방치됐던 한 통의 편지가 최근 마침내 배달이 완료됐습니다. 몇십 년 걸린 거예요?
About
80년.
80 years. Yeah.
What happened?
It sounds like one of those, letters in a bottle type of stories. It gets lost and then it gets found somewhere in the other part of the world and then it gets delivered back to the original owner.
Yeah.
So this letter, it was originally written back in 1943. It was addressed to Louis and Lavenna George of DeKalb, Illinois, and it was lost for 80 years, as we mentioned. But an unnamed post office hero tracked down the only two surviving members of this family, the George family, their two daughters, and he or she, we don't know who it is,
Okay.
delivered this letter into their hands, and it took them 80 years to do this. So it was delivered to their one surviving daughter. Her name is Grace Salazar, who recently moved to Oregon, and then it was later shared to her sister. And so their parents, who were married in 1932, they've since passed away.
Yeah.
But the letter, they said that it offered a glimpse into their lives. It was written by their parents' cousin, and it was offering condolences over back then, they had recently recently lost another daughter, so it would have been one of their sisters
Right.
who had suffered from cystic fibrosis. And the DCAP postal office, they believe that the delayed delivery, it comes from the fact that the address on the letter, it didn't include a house number for the home so it just had the street, but it didn't have the number on it.
자, 그러니까 80년 전에 쓰여진 편지고요. 주소가 잘못 쓰여졌대요. 그 몇 번인지 그 하우스 넘버가 쓰여져 있지 않아서 지금 80년째 우체국에 그냥 방치돼 있었던 거죠.
Yeah, so I guess, it might have gone out and then come back and then gone out and come
저는
back.
사실 이걸 그동안 버리지 않았던 게 더
That was
신기한 것
amazing
같아요.
too. Yeah.
네. 그래서 이제 그냥 방치된 채로 있었는데 원래는 이렇게 80년 된 편지는 배달하지 않습니다. 그렇지만 거기 직원 중에 한 명이 이걸 보고 혹시 내가 지금 한번 추적해보면 찾을 수 있지 않을까? 뭐 후손이라도. 그래서 인터넷으로 열심히 서칭을 해서 따님을 찾은 거예요.
Yeah.
네, 그래가지고 이제 전달을 해드렸고 원래 이 편지를 받았어야 할 이 부모님은 이제 자꾸 하셨고 근데 내용을 보니까 지금 이제 살아계신 이 따님의 뭐 언니나 오빠 뭐 성별은 모르겠지만 위에 형제가 한 명 더 있었던 것 같아요. 근데 그 아기가 유산이 됐던 것 같아요. 예, 그죠? 그래가지고 그런 거에 대한 위로의 편지였답니다. 그 내용이. 그래서 얼마나 힘드십니까? 뭐 아무개 씨라는 그런 내용의 이 부모님한테 쓰여진 편지인데 그런 사실들을 다 모르고 있다가 80년이 지난 지금에서야 이런 일이 있었구나 우리 부모님이라는 거를 발견한 거죠. 진짜 듣기만 해도 영화 속의 한 장면 같습니다.
Yeah. And I mean, kudos to this, postal officer who, I mean, this is extra work if you
Yeah.
think about it. But they went through all this extra work to find this, the person and hand deliver it to them.
Definitely. That postal worker has been described as being very conscientious. 굉장히 양심적이다. 인 뜻이잖아요. 외국 언론에선 그렇게 표현을 하더라고요. 양심적인 우체부가 이렇게 찾아서 시간을 내서 서칭을 해가지고 시간이 많이 지났지만 그래도 유족들에게 이렇게 편지를 전해줬다. Right. 자, 그래서 편지를 이제 쓴 것은 1943년이었어요.
Yes.
그 표현을 보도록 하겠습니다.
Right.
This letter was penned in 1943.
Right. So it means it was written in 1943 or it was composed in 1943.
펜이라는 동사가요. 글을 쓰다라는 뜻이 있습니다. 자, 그다음에 it was lost in the mail. 얼마나 오랫동안? For decades on end.
Right. So if we say for decades on end, it means for decades and decades and decades and decades. So, on end, it means continuing without stopping for a specified period of time. And then that specified period of time is for decades. So here we're talking about for a very, very long time.
네. on end가 붙으면은요. 계속 끊임없이 오랫동안이라는 느낌이 있어서요. For decades, 수십 년 동안 on end. 하염없이 그냥 우체국에 이렇게 방치돼 있었던 겁니다. 자, 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. A letter penned in 1943 was finally delivered recently after it was lost in the mail for decades on end because it was sent with an incomplete address.
Netflix's Beef, directed by Lee Sung-jin and featuring Stephen Yeun and Ali Wong, swept all three categories it was nominated in at the 2024 Golden Globes, becoming the first show created by and starring Asian Americans to win Best Limited TV Series.
이성진 감독이 연출하고 배우 스티븐 연과 엘리 웡이 출연한 넷플릭스 드라마 비프가 올해 골든글로브 시상식에서 세계 부문을 휩쓸면서 아시아계 미국인이 제작 및 주연을 맡아 최우수 TV 미니시리즈 부문을 수상한 첫 작품이 됐습니다. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so very exciting for the whole team and exciting for viewers who loved the show. I have to say my wife and I binged it in about 3 days when it came out.
Did you?
It was
Did you
really
enjoy
good. It's not for everyone because it's a bit violent and my goodness, there's some bad language too, but it's very exciting, very well made and quite funny.
It's about road rage?
Yeah, not just road rage, but also revenge and also, I don't know, the feelings that you get when you're an Asian American living in America and what that means to be see someone like that.
Interesting.
Yes, so they got Best Actor and Best Actress in a limited series, and then it took home the Best Miniseries or TV film. It's great news for them because it's the first win and nomination each for both of them.
Yeah.
And the first time an Asian American series like this has won the award.
네, 골든글로브스에 정말 많은 캐터고리가 있죠. 그 중에서도 TV 미니시리즈에서 남우주연상 스티븐 연, 여우주연상 알리 웡, 그 다음에 베스트 TV 미니시리즈에서 이 드라마 시리즈라고 해야 될까요? 비프가 이제 셋 다 요 TV 미니시리즈 부문에서 상을 받게 됐어요. 정말
Yes.
기쁜 소식이고 비프라는 요 타이틀도 간단하게 설명을 좀 해주시면.
So it's not 소고기.
소고기 아니죠? 네,
It's,
아니에요.
I don't have any beef with them winning, meaning I'm happy they won. Because if you have a beef with something, you're not happy about it or you're not happy with them.
네, 여기서의 beef는요, 스펠링은 소고기랑 똑같지만 뜻은 굉장히 불만이 있다는 뜻으로 have a beef with someone에서의 beef입니다.
Yeah.
그래서 인터뷰 내용을 간략하게 제가 찾아보니까 스티븐 연이 이 road rage 얘기를 하면서 이제 운전하면서 이렇게 분노에 찬 운전자가 자기다. 뭐 이런 얘기를 하더라고요. 그래서 뭔지 저도 정확히는 모르겠지만 막 뭔가 이렇게 불만에 가득 찬 그런 얘기를 하는
Yeah,
것
it
같다.
starts off with a small beef and then they beef up the beef, meaning they make it bigger and stronger.
그렇군요. 네. 그래서 지금 이게 엄청난 인기인데 이번에 골든글로브스에서 상을 노미네이트드 된 부문에서 다 상을 받았습니다.
Yes, and I should say that Barbenheimer also did very well, meaning
Yes.
Barbie and Oppenheimer, they took home some of the big awards too. Succession was the big TV series of the night. So congratulations to everyone. And, well, I look forward to seeing what gets nominated next year.
네. 바비하고 오펜하이머 그 합쳐서 우리가 바벤하이머라고 그동안 많이 읽고 소개도 해드리고 했는데요. 이번에 역시 상을 많이 받았습니다. Okay, so let's have a look at the first expression here. To star.
Yes, because we can use star as a noun, meaning a famous person or a famous actor, but we can use it as a verb, meaning if someone is starring in something or something stars someone, means they are appearing in it. They are one of the main performers or main actors.
That's right. A movie stars an actor. 그러니까 뭐 어떤 영화가 이런 이제 주연 배우가 있다 이런 얘기를 할 때 star라는 동사를 쓰거든요. 그래서 주연을 맡았다라는 뜻으로 씁니다. 자, 그 다음에는 limited TV series가 이 카테고리 이름에 들어가는데요.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Well, if I find this very funny for me because I come
Okay.
from a country where all the TV series are limited TV series. But in the United States, generally speaking, for a drama or a sitcom, they run for 20-something episodes a season, and they run not just for one season, but for years and years and years until they get cancelled. So a limited TV series is like a TV mini-series, meaning there's a limited number of episodes. But growing up in the UK, most dramas were 3 or 6 episodes anyway. Only the soap operas ran and ran.
그러니까 처음부터 이게 몇 회분으로 이렇게 나온 드라마 시리즈 있죠? 이런 것들을 limited TV series라고 얘기하는 거예요. 근데 끝없이 가는 것들도 있어요. 이거는 그럼 unlimited TV series인가요?
Well, no, we just say TV series.
그냥 TV series.
Yeah, because
okay.
because the format in the United States is that TV series generally were meant to run and run and run.
아, I see. Interesting. 자, 그러면 여기서의 limited TV series는 뭐 미니 시리즈 정도로 우리가 보면 될 것 같고요. 그런 부문에서 이렇게 상을 받게 됐다라고 소개를 해드렸습니다. 자, 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. Netflix's Beef, directed by Lee Sung-jin and featuring Stephen Yeun and Ali Wong, swept all 3 categories it was nominated in at the 2024 Golden Globes, becoming the first show created by and starring Asian Americans to win Best Limited TV Series. And let's now move on to the second headline.
The National Assembly has passed a bill aimed at establishing an independent space and aerospace agency, known as the Korea Aerospace Administration, KASA, to spearhead the country's burgeoning space program.
네, 우리나라 급성장하는 우주 프로그램을 주도적으로 맡게 될 우주항공청, 일명 카사라는 이름의 독자적인 항공우주 기관의 설립 법안이 국회를 통과했습니다. 이름에서도 느끼셨을 것 같아요, 우리 청취자 여러분.
Yes.
카사는 그러니까 나사의 한국판이라고 보면 되겠죠.
That's right. The US have NASA and now we have CASA. And it's basically putting two different institutes into one.
Right.
So it's taking the Korean Aerospace Research Institute and then the Korea Astronomy and Space Science Institute. They're going to be incorporated into this new one body. And it's expected to be launched in Sachon around May or June. It's going to take a little while because bills have to go through due process. And it's going to be operating under the Ministry of Science and overseen by the Presidential Science Advisory Committee. We'll see what happens because Korea's been making great strides in terms of space. I think for a couple of decades there, the whole world went a bit quiet when it came to space exploration and spacey things. But now I think the world's excited about getting up into space again.
This is very exciting news indeed for all the aspiring astronauts or people, students who want to, work in the space field. You can do this now at home for all of our Korean children out there.
Yes, so we'll see what happens though. It's going to be a few years in the making, I'm sure, but it's exciting news.
네, 그렇습니다. The two institutes that you mentioned that will be incorporated, the first one was
The Korean Aerospace Research Institute.
이거는 우리말로 한국 항공우주연구원, 우리가 항우연이라고 하죠. 네, 이거를 영어로 CARI라고 하고, the other one was
The Korea Astronomy and Space Science Institute.
네, 이게 이제 한국 천문연구원입니다. 그래서 이 두 기관은 이제 아까 얘기한 카사에 편입이 되는 것이죠. Let's have a look at the first expression here. Spearhead.
Yes. Now, if you're familiar with weapons, you'll be familiar with a spear, which is what used to be used in Rome or Greece or all over the world. I'm sure here in Korea too. And what's at the top of the spear? The spearhead, the pointy bit, which you use to attack, or is the bit that goes first when you throw it. So it's the thing that's leading the way.
네.
And so when we use spearhead as a verb, we're saying this is the thing or this is the person or the organization which is going to push forward. They're going to be at the very forefront of things.
네, spearhead라는 이 동사는요, 이끌다, 앞서서 이끌다라는 뜻이 있습니다. 그래서 you can think of the pointy thing at the end of the spear. The next expression is burgeoning.
Yes, if something is burgeoning, it's growing. It's starting to grow, to get bigger and bigger and better and better.
계속 성장한다는 뜻이 있어서 급성장한다라고 해석을 하면 되겠습니다. 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. The National Assembly has passed a bill aimed at establishing an independent space and aerospace agency known as the Korea Aerospace Administration, or KASA, CASA, to spearhead the country's burgeoning space program. Line.
The US Federal Aviation Administration has said 171 Boeing 737 MAX 9 planes will remain grounded until it is satisfied the planes are safe as safety inspections continue over the jets after part of an Alaska Airlines plane's fuselage fell off last week.
지난주 알래스카 항공 비행기 동체 일부가 떨어져 나가는 사고 후 안전 점검이 진행 중인 가운데 미국 연방 항공청은 사고기 기종인 보잉 737 맥스 9의 안전이 담보될 수 있을 때까지 해당 기종 171대 운항을 금지한다고 발표했습니다. Tell us more.
Well, I'm sure many people may have seen on social media the clips going around from the cabin, passengers taking photos and video of what was happening. A very, very scary moment.
Right.
It was last Friday. It was a flight from Portland, Oregon to Ontario, California. It was Alaska Airlines, and they had to begin an emergency descent because they had this big gap in the fuselage. One passenger said it was as wide as a refrigerator. Fortunately, all 177 passengers and crew landed in Portland. Several were injured, but no one was seriously injured. And it seems that this large section of the plane's outer shell fell off shortly after takeoff, and they're searching for it.
Wow.
They haven't found it yet, but also they've grounded these planes, the same type of planes, because they want to check that they're going to be fit to fly.
What a huge scare that must have been.
Yes,
to
I'm
say the
just.
least.
At least there's a happy ending to it. At
Yes.
least everybody came out relatively unscathed.
That's right. Let's have a look at the first expression. You just mentioned it, but it's to remain grounded.
Yes. Now, this is a term that means one thing when we talk about people and another when we talk about planes. So
Tell
let's
us about
talk
both.
Yes, so planes first. If a plane is grounded, it is on the ground. It's not going to take off, or it's not allowed to take off. So in this case, the planes have been grounded by the authorities. They said you may not fly the Boeing 737 MAX 9 until we have properly inspected them. You know, the air traffic control may say, I'm sorry, you're going to be grounded for the next 30 minutes. There's too much fog on the runway. For humans, when we talk about being grounded, one is if you're a child and your parents say you've been too naughty, you're not allowed to go out and play. The other meaning is when you're adults and you're looking after your mental health, it means you're properly rooted in who you are. You don't have your head in the clouds. You're feeling like, okay, I can do this.
뜻이 지금 한 세 가지 정도를 설명을 해주셨어요. 첫 번째는 항공기에 관한 것인데 for a plane to be grounded 그러면은 이륙 금지, 운항 금지가 된다는 뜻으로 땅에 지상에 머물게 하다라는 뜻입니다. 자, 그다음에 사람한테 쓰이는 뜻으로는 지금 크게 두 가지가 있는데 하나는 아마 부모님이 자녀에게 벌을 줄 때 You're grounded.
Yeah, no fun for you.
외출 금지 이런 뜻이에요. 이건 이제 이륙 금지랑 비슷하죠. 비행기는 날 수가 없고 아이는 집에 나갈 수 없고 이런 이제 외출 금지가 될 수도 있고 또 하나는 뭐냐면은요. 굉장히 좋은 뜻인데 to be grounded라는 것은 나 자신을 잘 알고 이렇게 뜬구름 잡기식으로 your head in the clouds라고 아까 표현을 하셨는데 너무 그냥 그 실체 없는 것을 계속 상상하면서 사는 게 아니고요. 나는 이런 사람이야. 그리고 나는 이런 장점도 있고 단점도 있고 그리고 뭐 이런 좀 현실적이면서 나 자신을 잘 아는 사람 이런 사람을 grounded person이라고 얘기를 하죠.
Yeah, normally you have to ground yourself before you have a big task. You have to get ready for it and feel like, okay, I know what I have to do. I'm not gonna just skip through it. I'm gonna do it properly and I'm gonna be careful.
그래서 보통 칭찬이에요. 만약에 사람한테 이게 this person, my friend, is really grounded. You know, sort of down to earth person이다. 이렇게 얘기를 한다 그러면은 이 사람은 뭐 잘난 체하거나 이러지 않고요. 정말 딱 자기 자신을 잘 알고 그다음에 좀 털털한 면도 있을 수 있고 이런 사람을 보통 grounded하다고 해요. 그래서 이렇게 참고로 알아두시면 좋을 것 같습니다. 자. Fuselage 이것도 역시 이제 항공기에 관련된 표현인데 what does it mean?
Yes, the fuselage is the main body of the plane. It's not the tail, it's not the wings. It's the bit where all the people are sitting.
비행기의 기체, 동체를 말합니다. 자, 다시 한번 읽어볼까요? The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration has said 171 Boeing 737 MAX 9 planes will remain grounded until it's satisfied the planes are safe, as safety inspections continue over the jets after part of an Alaska Airlines plane's fuselage fell off last week. And let's move on to the next headline.
A Chinese hospital has found a new genetic sequence for the extremely rare blood type P, a variety that has a frequency lower than 1 in a million, according to a local news report.
100만 명 중 1명 미만으로 나타나는 극히 희귀한 P형 혈액형의 새로운 유전자 서열이 중국의 한 병원에서 발견됐다고 현지 매체가 보도했습니다. Right, so this is a very rare discovery, isn't it?
Yeah, when there was the big blood type craze about 20 years ago, people were talking about the A-hyung and the B-hyung and never heard about the P-hyung.
Exactly.
Yeah, but this is really rare. There's only about a dozen documented cases of people with type P blood in China.
Right.
So it's less than 1 in a million. And it was discovered in 1927. And it's the first time they've been able to detect the nucleotide sequence. And these are the very small molecules that form DNA and RNA. You know, most of us are going to be A or B or O or AB. But then we also have these less common types. Like there's the HH Bombay antigen system, and then we have the P blood group, which I didn't hear about until I read this.
네. 중국에 그러니까 한 12명 정도만 가지고 있는 이 P형 혈액형의 새로운 유전자 서열이 이번에 우연히 발견이 됐다라고 합니다. 자, 표현을 좀 볼게요. It's extremely rare.
Meaning it's very, 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 very rare.
That reminded me of a chocolate ad from a long, long time ago.
Well, there we go. Yes, if something is extremely something, it's a lot. So we use this when we really want to emphasize how rare, how special, how beautiful, how ugly, how magical, how awful something is.
네, rare가 드물다, 희귀하다라는 뜻인데 그 앞에 extremely가 붙으면은요 대단히 뭐뭐하다라는 뜻이 있습니다. 그래서 very, very 표현해 주신 거고 그 다음에는 frequency는요?
I believe it's 1.054
What?
radio frequency for EBS. 1054.
104.5.
Yeah.
No,
No, we talk
is it-
about radio frequencies. But we also talk about the frequency of something is how often it occurs, how
네,
often
네.
it happens. So here, the frequency we're looking at is 1 in a million or less than 1 in a million. The frequency of 최수진's morning special, 7 times a week.
아,
That's
그래요.
the frequency, how often the show appears on the radio.
frequency가 주파수가 될 수도 있고 그다음에 빈도수가 될 수도 있어요. 그래서 여기서는 그런 빈도로 볼 수 있겠죠. 왜냐하면은 너무나 발생하기 힘든 혈액형이거든요. 그래서 it has a very, very low frequency. 이 나타날 빈도, 그 확률이 1 in a million 보다도 작다.
Extremely rare.
그렇습니다. 자, 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. A Chinese hospital has found a new genetic sequence for the extremely rare blood type P, a variety that has a frequency lower than 1 in a million, according to a local news report. Now let's move on to the final headline.
An elderly woman in her 90s has been rescued from under the rubble of a 2-story house more than 5 days after the 7.6 magnitude earthquake that struck central Japan on January 1st.
지난 1월 1일 규모 7.6의 지진이 일본 중부를 강타한 지 5일이 지난 시점에 쓰러진 2층 주택의 잔해 속에서 한 90대 여성이 구조됐습니다. That's a miracle.
It is. It was a shocking start to the new year. I mean, 126 people so far have died, according to Japanese authorities. And normally, 3 days is your period for finding survivors. It's what they call the golden period.
Right.
So the fact that this elderly woman in her 90s was found in Suzu City 124 hours after the earthquake struck is quite incredible. She spent 5 days beneath the wreckage of her house in Suzu, and the rescuers came to her and they were calling out to her and saying, "It's going to be okay, you're going to be okay, stay positive." And they managed to pull her out. She was stuck under furniture in this very narrow space between the first and second floors. It took hours to get her out, but they got her out. They took her to hospital, and it's a miracle she survived.
Local reports say she probably survived thanks to the rainwater.
Yes, I mean, it's astonishing how resilient human beings can be in times of distress and trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. 네, 아마도 이제 빗물을 마시면서 이렇게 버텨오신 게 아닐까 싶습니다. 90대의 할머니가 124시간이라고 하셨죠, 아까? 네, 5일 정도 동안 이렇게 잔해 속에 파묻혀 있었는데 정말 너무나 천만다행으로 살아서 구조가 됐습니다. 잔해, 영어로는 rubble.
Yes, rubble is the bits of rock or brick or cement or mortar or concrete or whatever it may be when
Yeah.
something has been destroyed or damaged. So after an earthquake or after a war, after a bombing, after a demolition, when a building gets knocked down, there will always be rubble. It basically means bits of rock.
네, R-U-B-B-L-E 이렇게 쓰고요. And this was of a 2-story building.
Yes, and a 2-story building has 2 floors. The first floor and the second floor, or the first story, or the second story, can be spelt like a story, it's a storybook, or it can be spelt S-T-O-R-E-Y.
네, E가 들어가기도 하고요. 안 들어가도 괜찮아요. 두 가지 스펠링이 다 되는데 몇 층짜리 건물이라고 할 때 2-story building 이렇게 얘기를 할 수 있습니다. 자, 그러면은
And talking of this, can I just say, if you go
Yes.
to the UK, don't get confused if the first floor is the second floor.
That's right. 영국에서는요. 우리가 생각하는 1층이 ground floor고요. 한국에서 생각하는 2층이 영국의 1층입니다. 그래서 친구랑 몇 층에서 만나자 이렇게 약속하고 엇갈릴 수 있거든요.
네.
영국에서는 이거 좀 주의하시면 되겠습니다.
You know why?
Why?
It's because we're a very grounded country.
They are very grounded. 아주 현실적인 나라라서. 자, 다시 한번 읽어보겠습니다. An elderly woman in her 90s has been rescued from under the rubble of a two-story house more than 5 days after the 7.6 magnitude earthquake that struck central Japan on January 1st.
The nation's current account remained in the black for the 7th consecutive month in November, logging a combined surplus for the first 11 months of last year at $27.4 billion.
지난해 우리나라 1월에서 11월 누적 경상수지가 274억 달러를 기록하면서 11월 기준으로 경상수지가 7개월 연속 흑자 기조를 유지했습니다. Tell us more.
Right, so of course the current account measures the nation's earnings and spendings abroad, and this is definitely good news coming for the economy, the Korean economy. So the current account surplus for the 7th consecutive month, and it's for the month of November. It reached 4.06 billion US dollars, and the combined surplus for the first 11 months of last year, it stood at $27.4 billion, and they say that that's up about $300 million from the same period the previous year. So they're saying exports increased 7% on year to $56.4 billion in November, and that was expanding for the second consecutive month with a rebound in October after declining for 14 months straight. So it hasn't been all that great for exports, but we're seeing a little bit of progress for the past 2 months, while imports slipped 8% on year to $49.4 billion.
Right. Outbound shipments, inbound shipments, and of course the current account recording a surplus there. Let's have a look at the first expression, which is to remain in the black.
Right, so we see this a lot when we're reading news related to the economy, to finance, related to stock markets as well, and it goes together with the expression in the red and in the black. So if we see something that says in the black, it means that it's made a profit or it's profitable, and we can also use this for companies as well. So if a company is in the black, it means that it's doing well. But if it's in the red, it means it's not doing well.
네, 흑자가 in the black고요. 적자가 in the red입니다. 말 그대로 이제 검정색과 붉은색을 이렇게 영어로도 그대로 쓰고요. 이제 흑자를 기록했다라는 뜻으로도 be in the black, 반대로 be in the red 할 수 있는데 remain이니까요. 유지를 하고 있다라는 뜻이겠죠. What about combined something?
Right, so combined, it means to have here, they're talking about a combined value. So when you are combining something, you're putting two different things, or it could be many different things together.
combined는 결합이 됐다라는 뜻인데요. 그래서 우리 콤비네이션 피자라고 하면은 여러 가지가 결합이 된 피자죠. 재료들이 이것저것 많이 들어가 있는. 자, combination가 명사 형태가 될 텐데 combined 여기는 이제 형용사로 결합이 된 라는 뜻이고 여기서는 이제 combined surplus입니다. 그러니까 이게 합산 된 그런 경상수지 흑자를 말합니다. Okay, let's have a look at the headline again. The nation's current account remained in the black for the 7th consecutive month in November, logging a combined surplus for the first 11 months of last year at $27.4 billion. Let's move on to headline number 2.
The Financial Services Commission has announced it is expanding the scope of the so-called online one-stop loan service, which allows individuals to switch residential mortgage and 전세 loans to lower interest rates online.
금융위원회가 일명 온라인 원스톱 대환대출 인프라 서비스의 적용 범위를 확대한다고 밝혔습니다. 이에 따라 이제부터는 개인이 스마트폰 앱을 통해 주택담보대출 및 전세대출을 보다 낮은 금리로 갈아탈 수 있게 됩니다. This is good news for consumers.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I think it's been a while since I've been to the bank. We do a lot of our banking online these
Sure.
days. So consumers will be able to do their mortgage refinancing for apartments valued below 1 billion won. That's approximately 762,000 US dollars through these fintechs and online platforms operated by leading commercial lenders here in Korea. And they say that the 전세 loan services are scheduled to commence by the end of this month. And of course, the 전세 system is a housing rental system very unique to Korea, where tenants pay a lump sum that is a refundable deposit instead of a monthly rent for the term of the contract, which is usually 2 years. And the services will be available starting at 9 a.m. and it will end at 8 p.m., which gives people a little bit longer time because banks close very early these days.
Yeah.
And that will be during the weekdays. And borrowers, they can take pictures of the necessary documents, including housing purchase or 전세 contracts, and submit them online. And of course, this doesn't mean that the services will not be available at banks in person. You can still do that in person. And they say that up to 7 business days will be needed before a loan application is approved. And I think it is good news, definitely, for people who are very busy. They don't have enough time to visit the banks because I've been through these loan application processes before. It takes forever.
It does indeed. But it's definitely going to get more convenient, that's for sure, because you can do this at home now.
Yeah, and another advantage is, with everything online, you can compare prices.
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely true. And that's the main point, really, of this app. Okay, let's have a look at the first expression, which is to expand the scope of something.
Right, so you can also use the expression widen the scope or broaden the scope of something, and it means to broaden or enlarge the range or amount of something. And when we're talking about scope, if there is a scope for a particular kind of behavior or activity, people have the opportunity to behave in this way or to do that activity.
범위나 영역을 확대하는 것을 expanding the scope라고 합니다. And the next term is individual.
So individual is a single person or thing, especially when compared to the group or set to which they belong.
명사로서의 individual, 여기서 s 붙어서 복수 형태로 썼는데요. 개개인을 뜻합니다. Here's the headline again. The Financial Services Commission has announced it is expanding the scope of the so-called online one-stop loan service, which allows individuals to switch residential mortgage and 전세 loans to lower interest rates online.
A robotic lander built by a private company and launched successfully on Monday has suffered a propulsion system issue on its way to the moon, upending the first U.S. soft lunar landing attempt in over 50 years.
네, 민간 기업이 개발해 지난 월요일에 성공적으로 발사한 로봇 달 착륙선에서 비행 도중 추진체 개통에 문제가 발생해 미국에서 50년 만에 시도된 달 연착륙 계획이 무산됐습니다. Tell us more.
So as we mentioned, it is the first U.S. moon landing attempt in more than 50 years. And I've been reading some articles about this, and they were saying that it seemed it was doomed.
Oh, was it from the start?
Yeah, so at least after, the launch itself was successful, but after they found this critical fuel leak just hours after the launch, they were saying it seems like it's not going to make it. So it was done by a private company called Astrobotics, and the spacecraft, they said that it developed a critical fuel leak just hours after Monday's launch. So they managed to orient this lander towards the sun so that the solar panel could collect some sunlight and charge its battery as they try to find out what's going on. The special team was trying to assess the situation, and they said that it was a failure in the propulsion system. So as soon as it became apparent that there was a critical loss of fuel, it's been basically they were saying, it's not going to work out. It's been, doomed, saying that it's dimmed the hopes of a planned moon landing, which was expected for February 23rd. So the propulsion system problem, it threatens the ability of the spacecraft to soft land on the moon. And the company itself was aiming claiming to be the first private business to successfully land on the moon, something only 4 countries in the world have accomplished so far.
네. 그 연료 누출 얘기를 하시면서 fuel leak라고 했어요. 뭔가가 누출이 되거나 물이 새거나 이럴 때 leak한다. 우리가 정보가 빠져나갔을 때도
Yes.
leak 됐다. 이렇게 표현을 하는데요. L-E-A-K. fuel 연료 누출이 있었기 때문에 이번에 이렇게 연착륙 계획이 무산이 됐고요. 그다음에 이번에 개발된 이 착륙선은 민간 기업이 개발을 한 것이다. 영어로는 it was developed by a private company 이렇게 표현을 합니다. Okay, let's have a look at the first expression, which is propulsion.
Right, propulsion. So it's a force that pushes something forward, and you might have heard about this when we're talking about airplanes, like jet propulsion or wind propulsion as well.
여기서 말하는 이제 추진체 그거를 이제 propulsion이라고 얘기를 하고 있습니다. 그러니까 추진체 계통에 이런 문제가 생긴 것이고요. And that upended all the plans. So to upend something, let's have a look at that expression.
Right, so upend something, it means to set or turn something on its end or upside down, to push or move something so that the part that usually touches the ground is not touching the ground anymore.
Right. upend 약간 뭔가 거꾸로 뒤집어지는 거를 연상하시면 돼요. upend라는 두 단어가 하나로 이렇게 만들어진 거니까 이게 이제 거꾸로 뒤집어지면서 계획이 무산된다든지 뭔가가 이제 망쳐진다든지 할 때 쓸 수 있어요.
Yeah. So when something's been ruined, basically, is what it was used as in our sentence today.
Yes. 자, 그러면은 다시 한번 이 헤드라인 읽어보겠습니다. A robotic lander built by a private company and launched successfully on Monday has suffered a propulsion system issue on its way to the moon, upending the first US soft lunar landing attempt in over 50 years. Let's move on to the next headline.
Researchers have developed a vibrating pill that stimulates nerve endings in the stomach to tell the brain it's time to stop eating, raising expectations this approach could lead to a more effective obesity treatment.
먹으면 위장에서 진동해 그 자극으로 식사 중단 신호를 뇌에 보내는 알약이 개발됐습니다. 이로써 보다 효과적인 비만 치료의 길이 열릴 것이라는 기대가 커지고 있습니다. 실제로 이렇게 vibrating, 진동을 하는 움직이는 거죠.
Yeah, this is
이제 그만 먹어 하는 사인을 주는 거죠. 이
well, it tells
알약이.
your brain, right? It tells your brain. So this is really exciting news because the obesity market, the diet market is a huge market. I don't know if you've set any New Year's resolutions. I usually don't set New Year's resolutions
okay.
because this is always a resolution for me.
Every year for
every
me as
year,
well.
you know, every year I'm gonna lose 3 pounds. I'm gonna lose 5 kilos this year because it's related to our health. You know, we always hear being at an adequate weight is good for our health. Maintaining a certain weight is good for our health. So a lot of people are interested in this. So this pill, it's not something that affects your body in terms of like medicinal effects, but it's actually a machine that goes into your body that vibrates and it stimulates the nerve endings in your stomach, and that sends signals into your brain saying that, oh, you know, you're full now, you've had enough, and you should stop eating. So they haven't run any actual tests on humans yet, but they've run tests on pigs, and they say that it was very effective. Apparently, they've run 2 tests, one on just regular pigs without the pills, and then one on pigs that took the pills, and the pigs that took the pills, they ate around 40% less than the control group. Yeah. So the only, I guess, now they have to figure out, because pigs can't tell you, oh, you know, this feels uncomfortable. There's no way for them to really communicate that. So those are some, I guess, kinks that they have to work out before this can actually become something that humans can try out.
네, 일단은 돼지를 통해서 시험을 해보니까 이 알약을 먹었을 때 기존보다 40% 정도 덜 먹게 되더라. 그래서 효과는 있는 것 같은데 이제 실제로 어떤 기분인지, 어떤 느낌인지 이런 것까지는 지금 알 수가 없어서 더 많은 연구를 해야 될 것 같긴 한데요. 근데 만약에 시판된다 그러면 굉장히 저렴하게 나올 거래요. 뭐 $1.
I'd buy it.
정말 왜냐하면 보통 이런 신약이 개발이 되면 비싸다고 우리가 생각을 하는데 지금 여기서 뭐 아주 저렴하게 시판될 수 있다라고 해서 그러면은 훨씬 더 많은 분들에게 큰 도움을 줄 수도 있겠다는 생각이 드네요. And as you said, I would buy it too.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, because I think someone recently just told me because I recently started learning tennis as a way to work out because working out is all part of it, you know, eating less, working
Sure.
out, all part of the diet scheme. But they were saying, okay, working out is good, but you have to eat less if you really want to lose weight.
exactly. And that's the hard part, isn't it?
Yeah.
Eating less. 소식하는 거죠. 자, stimulate라는 표현 보겠습니다.
So stimulating something, it means to encourage something to grow, develop, or become active. And in this case, it means our stomach, the nerves, it will become active because of the vibrations that the pill causes.
네, 자극한다라는 뜻이 바로 있습니다. stimulate. 자, 그 다음에 raise expectations.
So your expectations are kind of like your hopes or your beliefs that something will happen or that you will get something that you want. And you raise that, it means that if you raise the rate or level of something, it means that you increase it.
raise는 올리는 것이고 expectations는 기대니까요. raise expectations가 바로 기대를 높인다라는 뜻이 되겠죠. 또 참고로 기대한다라고 할 때 expect를 좀 조심해서 쓰셔야 됩니다. I'm expecting 이렇게 말하면 어떤 생각이 드세요?
Have a baby.
네, 나 출산 예정이야 라는 뜻이 되니까 굉장히 조심하셔야 돼요. 근데 내가 무언가를 예상하거나 기대한다. I'm expecting something.
Yeah.
이렇게 하면은 이제 기대의 의미가 있고 근데 우리가 그냥 이번 주말에 뭐 친구 만날 건데 나 너무 기대돼. 그럴 때는 I'm expecting 쓰지 않아요. 네, 그때는 I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
meeting my friend. 이렇게 look forward to를 쓰는 게 그때는 더 자연스럽습니다. 자, 그러면 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. Researchers have developed a vibrating pill that stimulates nerve endings in the stomach to tell the brain it's time to stop eating. Raising expectations, this approach could lead to a more effective obesity treatment.
3 Indian teenagers, all fervent fans of the K-pop group BTS, have returned home after they fled with only 14,000 rupees and without passports, endeavoring to meet their idols in Seoul.
네, 그룹 방탄소년단의 열렬한 팬인 인도의 10대 여학생 3명이 여권도 없이 단돈 14,000루피만 들고 자신들의 우상을 만나기 위해 서울로 가려고 가출했다가 결국 집으로 돌아갔습니다. 네, 이 14,000루피 우리 돈으로 하면은 22만 원 정도, 달러로는 200달러니까요. 큰 돈 아니고요. 더군다나 지금 해외 비행기를 타거나 아니면 배를 타거나 이래서 이제 가야 되는데 이 아이들은 무슨 생각을 하고 있었을까요? Tell us more.
Well, I mean, you know, if we think about it, traveling overseas, we've done it before. So we think, okay, you know, about $200, it's not that much money. But I think for these kids, they might have thought, oh, it's enough money.
그러니까 사실은 해외여행을 한 번도 해보지 않은 아이들이에요. 여권도 없었고요. 그 다음에 이제 22만 원을 가지고 기차 타고 배 타고 이렇게 해서 인도에서 서울로 쉽게 갈 수 있을 거라고
Yeah.
착각을 한 것 같습니다.
I think so.
13살이었죠?
They were 13. So, you know, having a teenager at home who recently just turned 13,
Right.
this story kind of, it resonates with
Yeah.
me because I'm afraid he might do something similar to this.
Well, this was a really odd fangirl moment, wasn't it?
Right. So they're all very passionate. We said fervent fans, but very passionate fans of the K-pop idol group BTS. So these 3 girls, they decided they wanted to meet their idols. So they wanted to travel all the way to Seoul. But I think they weren't sure how to exactly do this. So they gathered all the money that they had and they decided to do it by boat, I guess. So they traveled to these different cities to meet their beloved stars. So it didn't go exactly as they planned. I think they on January 4th, they quietly stepped out of their homes. They didn't tell their parents about this, apparently. money.
그렇죠. 그러니까 가출한 거죠.
Of course, yeah. So, and since they didn't return home, their parents, of course, called the police.
Right.
I'm sure they were very worried, and they were looking for them. And after realizing they didn't have enough money, they kind of had to shuttle back home.
네. 결국은 이제 경찰이 찾아서 그다음에 이 아이들이 부모님에게 인계가 돼서 그렇게 해서 집으로 돌아가게 된 거고요. 순수한 마음에서 일단 방탄소년단 만나고 싶다 하는
Yeah.
그 마음 하나 가지고 출발한 거긴 한데 네.
I mean, it was interesting because when we think, oh, I want to meet these idol stars, I want to meet my favorite stars, we think about going to concerts or looking for a concert, looking for them coming near you. You
Yeah.
don't think of going all the way to another country to go see them.
내가 얼마나 보고 싶었으면 군대에 가 있는 거는 몰랐나? 자, 한번 표현 보도록 하겠습니다. fervent라는 표현.
Right. So I mentioned, it's similar to being a passionate fan, but fervent is used to describe beliefs that are strongly and sincerely felt, or people who have strong and very sincere beliefs. So as we mentioned, we could say that you're a fervent supporter of something or a fervent fan of something.
네. A fervent fan, 열렬한 팬이라는 뜻입니다. fervent, F-E-R-V-E-N-T. 자, 그 다음에 이제 서울로 가려고 했던 그것을요, 영어로 endeavor라고 하는데요.
Right.
이게 무슨 뜻이죠?
So we use this expression because it wasn't a very easy trip for them. So endeavoring to do something, it means you're trying very hard to do or achieve something. So it's an attempt, but it's a very, you have to put in a lot of exertion or a lot of effort to get that done.
endeavor가 여기서는 동사로 쓰였기 때문에 힘껏 노력한다라는 뜻이에요. 명사로도 쓸 수 있습니다. 특히 언제 많이 쓰냐면은 앞으로 할 일에 대해서 제가 정말 응원해 드릴게요.
Yeah.
I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. 이거는 거의 그냥 하나의 set phrase처럼 많이 쓰는 표현입니다.
Yep.
그래서 뭐 예를 들자면은 기존에 다니던 회사를 그만두고 뭔가 새로 정해지진 않았지만 내가 새로운 인생을 살겠다 하는 그런 분이 있다면은 best of luck in your
Yeah.
future endeavors.
Yeah.
이런 표현 할 수도 있겠고. 아니면
Or someone that's starting a new business,
There
maybe
you
you could
go.
use that expression as well.
그렇죠. 보통은 이렇게 약간 사업 아니면 일 이런 느낌이 있는 것 같은데 뭐 어떤 것이든 새로운 일 학생한테도 뭐 쓸 수 있을 것 같아요.
Yeah.
졸업하고 나서 대학교 졸업하고 나서 이제 뭘
They're
할진
off on their
모르겠지만
own, yeah.
어쨌든 사회생활 뭔가 하겠죠. 뭐 공부를 더 할 수도 있고 그 모든 것들에 대해서 행운을 빕니다. 라고 할 때 이 future endeavors를 활용하실 수 있어요. 이 아이들의 이 endeavor는 실패로 돌아갔지만
Well, I'm just happy that they are back home safe.
me too.
And I
Yeah.
think I did read in the article that the police had to talk with them about how they aren't supposed to do things like this.
그러니까요. 사실 경찰도 약간 황당한 사건이니까 이게 타일러서 아이들아 이렇게 출국이 이렇게 쉽게 되는 게 아니야. 이렇게 좀 설명을 했을 것 같아요. 그런 느낌이 좀 기사 속에 있더라고요. 어쨌든 조금 실망을 했을지도 모르겠지만 그래도 안전하게 부모님 품으로 다시 다 돌아갔다고 합니다.
I don't know, and I did hear Hybe, the company behind
Yeah.
BTS, they I feel like they kind of keep track of articles like this because I've read somewhere that in the U.S. there's this I don't know if it's a school, but because I'm having trouble remembering, but I read that there's this place where they teach English, and then I was thinking maybe they could help fund them, and I think they do keep track of things like this, like fans, so maybe they could send them some fan merchandise or materials
Maybe.
for the girls who tried so hard to get to Seoul to see their favorite stars.
그럴 수도 있죠. 그리고 앞서서 이제 카런 선생님이 I can really resonate with this story 이렇게 얘기를 했어요. 우리 아이도 지금 이 또래이기 때문에 내가 너무 지금 공감이 가 이런 뜻이었죠. 그래서 나도 너무나 이해가 된다라는 뜻으로 this really resonates with me or with my situation 이렇게 얘기를 할 수도 있습니다. Okay, and let's have a reread of that headline. 3 Indian teenagers, all fervent fans of the K-pop group BTS, have returned home after they fled with only 14,000 rupees and without passports. endeavoring to meet their idols in Seoul.
The Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs has reissued a manual for businesses in the livestock industry outlining the appropriate ratio of fat to flesh in slices of samgyeopsal or pork belly offered to consumers.
농림축산식품부가 시중에 판매되는 삼겹살 속 지방과 살코기의 적정 비율을 제시한 삼겹살 품질 관리 매뉴얼을 축산업 관계자들에게 재차 공지했습니다. Okay, so this is not the first time, it's the second time that this has been issued. Tell us more.
Yeah, so this comes after there was some samgyeopsal that was handed out as a donation in the Incheon area, and the recipients showed the pictures of what they ended up receiving, and it was basically a lot of fat and not really much flesh. And I think, the post went viral. People were looking at that going, oh, my goodness, like, what are you supposed to eat there?
It's just all fat.
It's just lard, especially. So, we have a saying, trimming the fat when it comes to certain things. And I guess
to trim.
The butcher in this case certainly did not trim the fat.
Exactly. Well, let's have a look at the first verb to focus on, which is to reissue something.
Yeah, when you reissue, you're issuing again, because means to do again, and issue is the main verb here. So when you issue something, you hand something out, or you're making some sort of an order, and they're doing that again because they already issued this out, but they're doing it one more time, saying, look, this is what we want you to do. They're saying that a piece of samgyeopsal should have less than 1 centimeter of fat, and for ogyeopsal, it should be less than 1.5 centimeters in terms of the amount of fat on the white section of that.
네, 삼겹살 품질 관리 때문에 지금 사실 좀 논란이 된 게 좀 저렴하게 삼겹살을 샀더니 거의 다 비계인 거예요. 고기는 거의 없고. 그래서 이 기준을 좀 다시 세워야 되겠다. 민심이 이렇게 들끓자 정말 다시 이런 가이드라인스가 나왔다라는 건데요. reissue라는 게 이렇게 재배포하다, 재공지하다라는 뜻이 되겠죠.
Yeah, and I think nowadays, because people are ordering things online and stuff, because if you go to a supermarket yourself and no one's gonna pick, oh, I want that samgyeopsal with all the white, I don't need that much red flesh. Like, no one's gonna pick that.
Right.
So, like, it's, can you imagine the shock on the consumer's face when they receive this? You kind of,
What?
What?
Exactly.
Come on.
Yeah, so new guidelines are out. They've been reissued. And it's all about the appropriate ratio between fat and flesh.
Yeah, when you have a ratio of something, it's a comparison of A and B in terms of the amount. So in this case, we're talking about the ratio of meat to fat. Now, it doesn't say like, oh, it should be 1-to-1 or 2-to-1, but that's usually the type of measurement that you're talking about when you're going with ratios. And when they say an appropriate ratio, something appropriate is something that, this is what should be considered acceptable or considered right, the normal. So, you don't want to have a 10-to-1 ratio of fat to meat, or even 4-to-1 seems a little bit extreme. I think, 1-to-1 sounds nice, but at the same time, the world's not perfect, certainly. But if you saw the pictures of this one, it certainly was pretty bad.
It was indeed. So for samgyeopsal, the new guideline says the fat should be less than 1 centimeter. And then ogyeopsal, which is usually more fat to begin with, in that case, we're looking at less than 1.5 centimeters of fat. The red part you can call either flesh or meat, right?
Yeah, meat, flesh.
Meat,
sure.
flesh. 네. 그 살코기 부분은 meat 아니면 flesh라고 부르면 되고요. 그 지방, 그 비계, 그 부분은 이제 fat라고 하면은 됩니다. 그래서 적정한 비율, the appropriate ratio가 이렇게 발표가 됐습니다. Here's the headline again. The Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs has reissued a manual for businesses in the livestock industry outlining the appropriate ratio of fat to flesh in slices of 삼겹살 or pork belly offered to consumers. All right, well, moving on from pork to temperatures. Let's have a look at our second headline.
The year 2023 has been confirmed as the hottest on record, with mean temperatures rising 1.48 degrees Celsius above average readings from the pre-industrial times.
2023년의 평균 기온이 산업혁명 이전 시대의 장기 평균보다 약 1.48도 더 뜨거웠던 것으로 나타나 기록상 가장 더운 해로 확인됐습니다. The hottest year on record last year? Oh dear.
Yeah, in terms of overall temperatures. And I want to clarify one thing. In the article, it says the hottest on record with mean temperatures rising 1.48 degrees. Now, when I say mean temperatures, I'm not saying like, oh, they're so mean, they're so bad. Like, oh, what are you doing? Why are you so hot?
나빴어.
It's not that
Okay.
kind of mean. So we have three words: mean, median, and mode. And they all mean something similar when we're talking about averages or stats. So another word for average is mean. So if you take like 10 numbers, you add them all up, and then you divide it by 10, then you get the average or you get the mean. Now, the mode would be if you take all of the numbers and you line them up from smallest to biggest, and then whatever number of those is in the middle, that would be called the median. And then the mode would be whichever number, the same number, comes up the most often would be considered the mode. So if you lined up 10 numbers and 3 of them were 6, you had a 7, 8, 9, you also had a 1, 2, 3, then the 6 would be considered the mode because it comes up the most often.
Ah, okay. Mode, median, and mean.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember learning these terms,
In
but thank
math
you for
class,
clarifying.
yeah.
네, 여기서 말하는 그 mean temperature는 평균 기온을 얘기하고 있죠. But yeah, according to the stats, last year was the hottest on record.
Yeah, when something is the hottest, I think we know the hottest is the most hot, right? On record, we're talking about something that's been recorded. So we weren't necessarily keeping temperatures from the 1600s, let's say, as an example. So when we started actually keeping track of temperatures, of the annual temperatures from when we started doing that have been recorded, that have been written down, it's on record.
Something on record 그러면은 기록이 되어 있다라는 뜻이 있어요. 그래서 the hottest on record, 기록되어 있는 기온 중에서 가장 높은, 기록상 가장 덥다 이렇게 해석하면 되겠죠. What about readings?
Readings would just be the number that you're looking at in terms of measurement. So if you're looking at a thermometer and you look at the number, I guess nowadays they're all digital.
Yeah.
Back before, I'm thinking about the red mercury line. If
Right.
you look at the red mercury line, well, okay, the reading is 4 degrees Celsius. You're kind of looking at what the number says. Literally, like I'm reading a script.
Right.
In that case, you'd be reading a stat or a number. So you're observing what the actual number is.
여기서의 reading은요, 명사예요. 그래서 측정치를 말합니다. 그 눈금 값이죠. 그래서 그 나와 있는 기온을 또 이렇게 표현한 것인데 예전에는 진짜로 이제 온도계를 보면서 눈금이 지금 여긴가 이렇게 눈으로 우리가 봤던 시절이 있었는데 that's the reading, or readings in this case with an S. Here's the headline again. The year 2023 has been confirmed as the hottest on record, with mean temperatures rising 1.48 degrees Celsius above average readings from pre-industrial times.
Ecuador's president has ordered that criminal gangs be neutralized after days of violence culminated in an attack on a television studio during a live broadcast.
에콰도르에서 TV 생방송 중인 스튜디오가 습격당하는 등 폭력 사태가 극에 달하자 대통령이 범죄 집단을 무력화하기 위한 작전 명령을 내렸습니다. What's happening in Ecuador?
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe this. During a live broadcast, they had some criminal members come in and take over the studio. Now, Ecuador's police later did say that they had arrested all the armed men. Members of the media outlet had been evacuated, and all staff and hostages were alive. So
Right.
they're saying things are okay now, but at the same time, they're saying, look, I mean, we're gonna fight this crime now.
So, a notorious gangster disappeared from a prison cell, and then there's been loads of violent outbursts here and there.
Yeah, it seems that, there's, I guess, what do you call it? Organized crime, I guess, is going into battle with the nation, essentially.
자, 그래요. 지금 에콰도르에서 지금 뭐 생방송 중에 습격당한 것뿐만 아니라 뭐 거리에서도 지금 많은 습격이 계속해서 이어지고 있다라고 합니다. There's been a lot of armed conflict, it looks like, just across the region.
Even police kidnappings, I think, were
goodness.
among the violence and, things that have gone on. So, it certainly is a situation going on there. I don't know that I'd want to travel to Ecuador right now.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Okay, well, an emergency has been declared in Ecuador. Let's have a look at the first expression, which is to neutralize gangs.
Yeah, when we look at the word neutral, think of that as sort of being in the middle, not too far on one side or the other, right? Like we often think of Switzerland as being a neutral country when it comes to conflicts and stuff like that. So in the same sort of way, when something happens to an extreme, then to neutralize that is to bring that back into the middle, I think is the way that you can picture it. So in this case, obviously, we have criminal gangs that have been just rampant all around the country and certain cities. So to neutralize them means to, bring them and what's going on back into the middle where things are safe and not extreme.
When you're driving, or not when you're driving, but when you're maybe parking for a brief moment, you might put your gear in neutral because so that, someone can push it and stuff.
Yeah. I've heard that in Korea, it is law that at a red light, you're supposed to put your car into neutral.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
I didn't know that. 아, 그래요. 이제 중립 기어로 우리가 놓을 때 put your gear in neutral 이렇게 말합니다. 그래서 neutral이 중립이라는 뜻이 있는데 중립 국가는 neutral country, 그다음에 중립화시킨다라는 뜻도 있지만 여기서는 무력화를 시킨다라는 뜻으로요. neutralize라고 했습니다. 자, 그다음에 culminating in something은요?
Yeah, when something culminates, it adds up and adds up and adds up and then kind of reaches a climax of sorts. So I think here we're talking about the violence has been going on for some while. And then of all of the things to happen, on top of that, they took over a television studio during a live broadcast. So it kind of seems like of all the crazy things that have gone on, this was the biggest. So this was the climax of everything or the highest point or the most shocking news among everything.
네. culminate in something이라고 했을 때는 이것으로 최고조에 달했다라고 볼 수 있습니다. 자, 그러면 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. Ecuador's president has ordered that criminal gangs be neutralized after days of violence culminated in an attack on a television studio during a live broadcast. Okay, let's move on to the next headline.
A new research has found that an average liter of bottled water contains nearly 250,000 pieces of microplastics and tiny invisible nanoplastics.
생수 1리터에 들어있는 미세 플라스틱 및 눈에 보이지 않는 나노 플라스틱이 거의 25만 개에 달하는 수준이라는 새로운 연구 결과가 나왔습니다. I would be concerned if there were 250 pieces, but 250,000 pieces of microplastics.
It
Gosh.
is a shocking amount. And I think scientists always knew that there were some microplastics and stuff, but I think they even didn't realize just how big the number was until they actually did these scientific studies and looked under some of these more powerful microscopes to, make these observations. But yeah, we're talking 240,000 roughly that is per liter of water. So it is an awful lot. They say that they're expecting that it's actually from the bottle itself. So it's not from your tap water. It's not from the filters. They're saying that when they make these bottles, they expect probably some sort of plastic residue to remain within the bottle. So when that's filled up, then, that's what they're finding. And the big question that they don't have an answer for just yet is this harmful or unhealthy for you? So there's no absolute conclusion on that yet.
Because now we have the technology to scan everything and look into things in minute detail, things can get scary because I don't know if, plastic bottles today are just worse than before, or if we're learning more than before that was already there.
Exactly, because like you said, our technology now is greater, so they're using lasers and stuff like that to be able to scan these things differently. But at the same time, you read this and I can't help but have a side of me that's thinking, okay, let me get a thermos, like a stainless steel thermos, and carry my own, filtered water from home around in a stainless steel thermos rather than, buying a thing of water here and there.
그래요. 미국에서 이렇게 1리터짜리 생수병 안에 한 24만 개의 마이크로플라스틱, 아니 나노플라스틱이 들어있다라는 것을 발견을 했는데요. 이렇게 레이저 마이크로스코프, 레이저 현미경을 이용해서 처음으로 이렇게 측정을 한 것입니다. 표현 볼게요. A quarter of something.
Yeah, a quarter of something is 1/4. So basically, if you take something and you cut it twice, cut it once in half and then cut it one more time into 4 pieces, then that would be a quarter. And the most common place that we use this on a regular basis, if you're in North America, you have $1, and then you have a 25-cent coin, which we call a quarter. So it's the most common coin that we use to purchase things. Although with inflation, I don't know how many quarters we use anymore, but certainly when I was growing up, when it came to video games or laundromat machines and things like that, buying bottled water, you would often need quarters.
미국에서는요, 1달러의 4분의 1에 해당되는 25센트짜리 동전을 a quarter라고 부릅니다. 4분의 1의 뜻을 가지고 있지만 영어에선 한 단어 이렇게 똑 떨어지는 느낌이 있기 때문에 그래서 a quarter라고 말하는 게 더 쉬운 거죠. 우리는 4분의 1 하는 게 조금 길지만. 근데 이제 원래 뜻은 4분의 1이다. 그래서 시간 얘기할 때도요. 이제 몇 시 15분 아니면 몇 시 45분 얘기할 때 a quarter past, a quarter to 이렇게 표현을 하기도 하죠. What about invisible?
Invisible is simply something that we cannot see. Of course, the opposite is visible. So when something is visible, it means you can see it. If you look up in the night sky, you can see certain stars and certain planets even are visible. You can see Venus, maybe not in detail with the bare eye, but you can see it, and a sparkle in the sky. Say, oh, that's Venus. It's visible. Whereas certain other stars far, far away with the naked eye are invisible.
눈에 보이지 않을 때 invisible이라고 하고요. 투명인간 말하고 싶어도 invisible person, invisible man or woman 이렇게 말할 수도 있습니다. 자, 그러면 다시 한번 읽어볼게요. A new research has found that an average liter of bottled water contains nearly 250,000 pieces of microplastics and tiny, invisible nanoplastics. And here's our last headline.
A British man has discovered that a mouse emerges inside his shed every night to tidy the place up, as seen in a viral video clip.
네. 영국의 한 남성이 자신의 집 창고에 매일 밤 나타나 물건을 정리하는 쥐를 발견해 이를 포착한 영상이 화제가 되고 있습니다. 네. 우렁각시가 아니라 우렁각쥐 이런 느낌이 좀 있어요. This is amazing. What a clever little mouse.
Yeah, I guess this person was realizing in their shed that
Yeah.
things kept moving around
Right.
certain places because he would feed birds there, or he would leave, certain things out for birds to eat. And
Okay.
then when he realized, wait a minute, that's not where I left that last time, and things kept moving, so he decided to videotape or leave a surveillance camera to see what was going on. And I think he might have been expecting maybe like a person sneaking in there or something.
Because
But
things got tidier.
yeah, exactly.
Normally, when you think a mouse has scurried past, things would be messy.
Exactly. But this mouse, yeah, he kept making things neater and neater.
네. 영국에서 이 shed라고 하면은요, 보통은 뒤에 garden이 있고요. 그 다음에 이렇게 작은 집 모양으로 된 창고 같은 거예요. 그래서 거기에다가 tools 같은 거, gardening 많이 하니까 그런 tools를 보관하는 용도로 shed 많이 두거든요. 근데 그 shed에다가 이제 뭐 이렇게 뭐 새들을 위한 뭐 음식거리라든지 먹을거리 그런 것들을 좀 놨던 모양이죠. 그런데 아침에 가면은 이게 딱 정돈이 되어 있어서 뭐지? 누가 했지? 그래서 카메라를 설치했더니 아니 글쎄 쥐가요. 제가 그 영상을 보니까 이렇게 입으로 이렇게 뭐 이것저것 물어가지고 옮기고 이렇게 정말 깔끔하게 하더라고요. 깔끔한 쥐예요. 네, 신기합니다.
My kind of mouse. I got to find this mouse and bring it to my house to tidy up our place.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I explained what a shed is. 우리말로 뭐 헛간 이렇게 말할 수도 있을 것 같아요. Do you have sheds in Canada?
Yeah,
Obviously
yeah.
you must, right?
Yeah, if you have, most people, if you have a backyard and
Yeah.
you need to mow the lawn, then
Yeah.
you'll usually have a shed of some sort. And also, a thing that's become big, have you ever heard of what a she shed is?
No.
You've heard of a man cave.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, a she shed would be the female version
I
of a
see.
man cave. So, okay, you can have your man cave in the basement, but I want a she shed in the backyard.
아, 그렇군요. 이렇게 부부가 같이 살고 있을 때 남자가 이제 나만의 공간이 필요해. 그래서 남자의 동굴이라고 표현을 하는데 이제 거기에 상응하는 여자만의 shed. 왜냐면 she랑 shed랑 앞 발음이 똑같으니까 이렇게 표현하나 봐요. 아, 저도 she shed를 하나 만들어야 되나요? 자, 그다음에 tidy up.
Tidy up is to make things nice and neat and clean. I think, when you think of something that's tidy, then everything is in order. So you don't have things lying around and basically being messy. It's the opposite of being messy.
Yeah, exactly. 깔끔하게 정리하는 것을 tidy up라고 합니다. Here's the headline again. A British man has discovered that a mouse emerges inside his shed every night to tidy the place up, as seen in a viral video clip. And that's it for the headlines.